South Carolina has produced a huge amount of gold. And in fact, South Carolina has produced more than 3 million ounces of gold. That's a lot of gold. There's some western states that haven't produced that much. It has produced this tremendous amount. And, there are guys out there finding gold every day in South Carolina. Do you want to be one of those? Do you want to get your share of that South Carolina gold? Well, this video is what you need, because we're going to dive into the gold that's being found, the geology of the area, the slate belt that runs from the southern part of Virginia through North Carolina, South Carolina, and all the way down into northeast Georgia. That area has huge potential. Geologists have looked at it and said, this is an area with really great potential for gold. And a lot of stuff they think probably hasn't been found. And so it's a good place to prospect. And we're going to talk about that. Now, we're going to talk about and start off, like I say, there's guys out there finding gold right now. And we're going to talk about the gold that they're finding. So let's take a look at some of the gold that's being found in South Carolina.
There are a large number of streams in South Carolina that have gold in them, and streams and creeks and stuff, and there are people out panning for gold and getting some nice flakes and stuff like that. It's not easy, and of course there's access issues, because of most of the land being private. But if you can get in there and you can find a place where you can have access, then there's possibility for getting some decent flakes and nice gold. It tends to be on the small side, but there is good gold. With as much gold as South Carolina has produced, and with the fact that there's small amounts and moderate amounts of gold distributed over huge areas in the state, it's possible to keep working at it and accumulate some pretty good amounts of gold, as in this vial here of South Carolina gold. Sometimes even a pretty decent chunk of gold like this specimen piece can be found in South Carolina, especially with metal detectors, because I know that there have been some guys who have been really successful with detectors there.
Now, South Carolina is one of those states that's produced an awful lot of gold since 1960. There's an active mine, the Haley mine, or Haley. I'm probably mispronouncing it. You guys from South Carolina, you can tell me. It's spelled Hale with an E on the end. That mine has been active since 2017, producing 150,000 ounces a year. So that's significant and certainly has added to the production.
Here's a picture of the mine. It's an open pit mine. I think this is probably a fairly early picture because the pit isn't very big, and it's been operating now for 8 years or so. And so the pit, I'm sure, is much larger by now, but it's open pit and pulls out ore and treats it with cyanide, which is, as long as the precautions are taken, it actually is a fairly safe method. Here's a picture of the gold ore that they mine. It's not a big piece of quartz or something like that. It's mineralized rock, and this rock has been at least partly weathered and oxidized. It honestly doesn't look real obviously to be gold bearing, but certainly they have been testing it and mining it for a number of years, and so it clearly has gold that they can extract from it, but this is what their ore looks like.
Okay, so I said I'd talk about the geology of the slate belt. It's basically an area that is, been compressed by forces from the east that have compressed and built up the Appalachian Range. And there's gold along there. So let's take a look at the slate belt and talk about the slate belt gold.
Now, this is a map that shows the Carolina Slate Belt, and that's marked in red, and then has gold deposits that have marked along it. And those are the black dots where gold has been discovered in that Carolina Slate Belt. And then it also highlights a number of larger mines, and we'll talk about those in a minute. But the Carolina Slate Belt, extends all the way from Virginia down through North and South Carolina into Georgia. And it's a region that's primarily consists of volcanic and sedimentary rocks that were pressed together in a mountain building event, and through the heat and pressure were metamorphosed into slate and other metamorphic rocks. Many of these rocks have what they call a slaty cleavage, meaning that it breaks into flat slabs naturally, which is why the area is called a slate belt. The rocks were originally actually part of a volcanic arc similar to modern-day Japan, and they're Precambrian in age. The mountain building event, which is called the Appalachian orogeny, caused hydrothermal fluids to circulate through various faults and fractures, depositing gold in quartz veins. Now, the gold deposits of the southeastern U.S. are predominantly orogenic deposits that were formed during this mountain building event. And later weathering and erosion and breakdown of the quartz veins and stuff put gold into the streams and rivers and created placer deposits in the various stream beds. Some of the deposits in this area, though, are associated with igneous intrusions that are much later and formed epithermal type deposits. Now, the map also includes a number of productive mines, and gold was first discovered in South Carolina way back in 1802. The discovery was made in Greenville counties, but in the following years, additional discoveries were made all across the state, inspiring a number of commercial operations. In 1988, the Ridgeway mine, which is shown on this map, operated in Fairfield County. It operated for 11 years, and during this time produced about 1.5 million ounces of gold and about 900,000 ounces of silver. The Barite Hill mine, which is more toward the southeast part of the state, produced about 60,000 ounces of gold between 1990 and 1994, and at the same time produced about 109,000 ounces of silver. The Hill gold mine up in the north was first discovered in 1827 by Benjamin Hale. It quickly became one of the most profitable gold mines in South Carolina, and of course, mining there continues today, where Oceanic Gold is operating the property. And they produce about 100 to 150,000 ounces of gold every year. Here is a generalized map, a geologic map of South Carolina, and it shows the kind of orangish to tan and yellow area to the southeast, and that's the coastal plains, and there's not likely to be much gold found in here, maybe traces and kind of stuff, but not any significant amounts. The significant amounts of gold are more toward the northwest in the Blue Ridge and Piedmont zone, and the medium dark blue there is the slate belt, which is where a lot of the gold occurs. And then you see these kind of orangey blobs and green narrow blobs that are in that Piedmont and Blue Ridge zone. Those are intrusions of granitic and gabbro type rocks, granite and gabbro, and there is gold associated with these intrusions as well. And so that belt is the main part of where the gold is going to be, although there may be small amounts elsewhere in the state. And here is a map of the known gold deposits in the state of South Carolina. All the yellow dots are what they call MRDS gold deposits. So let me explain to you what the MRDS is. And it's a federal database. It stands for Mineral Resource Data System. And it keeps track of gold deposits. So where these dots are is people have reported gold. The problem is that it doesn't differentiate between some guy reports a tiny trace of gold in some place, and yet another place produced 100,000 ounces of gold. Both of them would get a yellow dot. So there's not a distinguish between, this is a tiny trace, this is a good amount, this is a huge amount. It's all a yellow dot. So it doesn't distinguish. Now, the dots that are scattered in the southeast part of the state, these are almost all going to be tiny trace amounts of gold that were reported. It's more the northwest parts of the state where you kind of see a line that goes from Augusta in Georgia to the northeast. That's the slate belt stuff. And then there's some more gold deposits in further north in kind of the Blue Ridge and other further north parts of the state. And, like I said, again, it doesn't distinguish between tiny amounts and huge amounts or anything in between. But it will give you an idea where the gold has been found. But let me talk about some of the counties. York County is one that boasts a variety of gold-bearing streams for panners to try their luck in. The most profitable of the streams in York is the Broad River. The river is tributary to the Congaree River, and it runs for about 150 miles through North Carolina and then down into South Carolina. A lot of people do panning there, and the York County stretch of the Broad River is one of the most productive. York County prospectors should also try panning in Kings Creek, Wolf Creek, and Bullocks Creek. You should also be noted that the nuggets have been reported at Rock Hill, although not with any great frequency. Maybe it'd be a good place to check with a metal detector. And now all of this, it's an access thing. There's private property and that sort of thing. And unless you have permission to be there, you don't want to go on somebody else's private property. There are national forests and stuff too, and we'll talk about that. Now, the Cherokee County is another one that's very well known for the focus. It was known because there was a nuclear power plant proposed. But among prospectors, it's recognized as one of South Carolina's most reliable producers of gold. It's home to the Love Springs mine, which is one of the more notable mines, and there's other prospecting spots as well. The Love Spring mine is located in the Appalachian Highlands, and during its time in operation, it produced a significant amount of placer gold and contributed to the area's economy. Although the Love Springs mine is no longer active, Cherokee County boasts ample opportunities for recreational prospectors, and virtually all the rivers and streams in the county are said to contain at least small quantities of gold. Some even contain gold that worked its way down from the Love Springs mine. And then there's Saluda County, and gold can be found in almost all the rivers of Saluda County, but of course some of its rivers are richer than others. Saluda County prospectors have experienced the most success along the Little Saluda River. The gold that goes undiscovered in the Little Saluda River also works its way down into various tributaries. Then there's also Chesterfield County. Chesterfield is home to only a few reliable producers of gold, but the most notable is Nugget Creek, which is aptly named because of the nuggets it's produced. It's produced some pretty good size ones. And most prospectors now only manage to extract some smaller placer gold, but still it has the right combination. And if you know what you're doing, maybe you'll capture one of the nuggets that gave the creek its name. Now, as I've mentioned, access is a key, and panning is allowed in some parts of national forests, but you need to contact the Forest Service manager for their specific regulations as to what's allowed and what's not. You'll get a free permit for panning on public land, and the permits usually are mostly about making you aware of the rules and limitations. The Sumter National Forest is one of the biggest areas, and the panning is allowed, of course, no mechanized equipment, and you can get a permit from them, but the permits, at least as I'm recording this, the permits are free. Now, you'll notice one thing about this map. There's a mark there for BLM claims that are open. It's a red. And you'll notice that on the state of South Carolina, there are no red dots. There are no BLM claims. And it's because the claim laws of the United States were set up so that states could opt in or not necessarily participate if they didn't want to. And South Carolina did not opt in. So there are no valid federal mining claims in the state of South Carolina simply because they never opted into the program, so it's not allowed. But, there are places you can get, and again, if you have access or you can get permission through the National Forest, there's places for prospectors to go in South Carolina.
Now, wherever you go in South Carolina, whatever type of prospecting you're doing, be it a gold pan or a metal detecting or whatever, gold is a skill. Finding gold is a skill. And going out and tripping over a big giant nugget is just not very likely. You need to know what you're doing and where to look. Even if you have access to a property, well, where on that property should you look? Well, that's the skill of being a prospector. And, I say sometimes to people, if you own a voltmeter, that doesn't make you a journeyman electrician. It's the skill that the journeyman electrician has, knowledge about electrical wiring and electrical systems and that kind of stuff that make him a journeyman electrician, right? It's not the owning a voltmeter. So, owning and, having the skills. I wrote a book, because I've got 40 years of experience prospecting and a degree in mining engineering. And so I wrote a book. It's called Fistful of Gold, because I want you to go out and find some fistful of gold for yourself. I also partnered with an outfit called High Plains Prospecting, and High Plains is basically a full line prospecting dealer, and they have all kinds of equipment. You know, they'll have everything from a simple gold pan all the way up to a high dollar metal detector, and of course everything in between. And they also of course have my book, and so I recommend getting my book to them because you can get a discount. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about my book and about high plains right now. This is my book, Fistful of Gold. It's an encyclopedia of everything you need to know to go out and find gold for yourself. It distills down my 45 years of experience out in the field prospecting, as well as my degree in mine engineering. It's, like I say, an encyclopedia. There's a lot to it. It's over 250,000 words long, hundreds of pages with hundreds of illustrations, teaching you what you need to know about geology, about mining districts, about techniques of finding gold. It covers metal detectors, sluicing, panning, dry washing, high bankers, you know, you name it, it's covered in there. It talks some about platinum and diamonds, but it's mostly about gold because gold is more widespread. It is not so much a book about where to find gold, but a book about how to find gold. Because even if you have a location where gold was mined in the past and you go out there, well, where should you look to be successful in your prospecting, to find the gold that's there? This is the book that's going to tell you that information. I spent most of 10 years writing this book, so I thought a long time about it. It's got, like I say, lots of information and lots of illustrations, and I've had results from people who bought it. It's available on Amazon, but I recommend buying it through High Plains Prospectors, and I'll put a link in the description for buying this book through them. They have a better price than Amazon, and I have a special deal that I'll tell you a little bit more about, where you can get a 5% discount from the price even with that. On Amazon, the book rates a 4.7 out of 5, which means that of all the people that have bought it, they've been really highly satisfied, and I think you, if you buy my book, will be just as highly satisfied as well. Now let's talk a little bit more about High Plains Prospectors. They're a prospecting shop, a mail order prospecting shop that I've partnered with. The deal is that I can get you a 5% discount, a coupon code, and I'm going to put the code to that right here. It's just Chris Ralph, all caps with no space between Chris and Ralph. You put that in there as a discount code and you'll get 5% off their already really good prices. I think it's a great deal where you win by getting a discount, I get a little percentage of that, and they get new business. So if you need prospecting supplies, High Plains is really the way to go. And I'll put information, like I say, in the description more about how you can work with them, because I'm working with them. They really are great guys, a great company. For even more information, I also have a website, and I'm going to show you my webpage and talk a little bit more about that right now.
This is my webpage. It's located at NevadaOutbackGems.com. You can Google it, or I have a link down in the description below. But there's lots of information here, miscellaneous stuff, pictures, some historic information as well, stories. It's got a lot of great fun stuff. You'll probably be interested in it.
Now, on all of my YouTube videos, I encourage you guys to ask questions. If you have thoughts, comments, suggestions for things that I ought to look at in my videos, things that you want to find out more about, and I answer 100% of my questions. There's not very many YouTubers out there that answer 100% of their questions. I'm one of the few. And so I will do my best to answer what you have. I mean, I only can write so much. Sometimes the answer is something where I'm going to recommend that you buy the book and read about it. I also ask that you subscribe to my channel, click the bell notification so that every time I come out with a new video, and you'll be able to watch it. And like I say, I cover a huge amount of topics. I also have 250 videos that I've already done, and so you can go back through my catalog of videos on YouTube. I'm sure there'll be many videos there that you'll want to take a look at, especially if you have any interest in gold or platinum, diamonds, gemstones, geology, and that sort of stuff. My YouTube site is going to be right up your alley. So I'll see you again real soon. We'll be out in the field and I'm back in the office at the whiteboard, and whether we're looking at gold or platinum, diamonds, gemstones, or other interesting geology, it's going to be fun. You're going to enjoy it, and we'll see you again real soon.